Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online, news that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Thank you for joining us for Newsmakers. I'm Casey Counts. Education in New Mexico is a challenging topic. The state ranks at or near the bottom of national lists for reading, math, graduation rates, and other metrics. Las Cruces Public Schools Superintendent Ignacio Ruíz, who has been on the job since August 1st, joins the program to discuss his plans for student and staff success and how he plans to address these complicated issues. Welcome, Superintendent Ruíz. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Well, why don't we start with a little bit about you and your background and what prepared you for this particular school district.
Yes, thank you. So originally I was a teacher for 7 years back in Tucson, Arizona, where I grew up. Taught science, dual language, etc. And then was given an opportunity to be able to have some leadership roles in curriculum, student support, assistant principal, central office director, and most recently in Las Vegas, Nevada, was an assistant superintendent in Clark County. It was the 5th largest school district in the nation. And really, those experiences have helped me to prepare not only for our students, but also to be able to work with our communities.
And maybe as hot as our summer was here in Las Cruces, it wasn't necessarily that hot for you.
Oh, well, yeah, you know, I went from Tucson to Las Vegas to here, so hot, right? Yes, yes.
Indeed. And so what are your priorities for the district at this point?
So our priorities, as we look at our data, and you just mentioned it a little bit earlier with regards to our student achievement, is really prioritizing our level one, our tier one instruction, level one instruction that which is the content, you know, in all content areas. Really building capacity of our teachers and ensuring that we are purposefully planning for every single student in our classroom to ensure that our English learners, our students with IEPs, all of our kiddos receive the supports, that we have high rigor but high supports for every student in our classroom.
You know, and we'll get on to some of those specifics throughout the course of our conversation. I'd like to move on now to a topic that's on so many people's minds, parents, students, teachers alike, just members of the community, and that's school safety.
Yes.
School resource officers have been a big topic of conversation locally lately. What can you tell us about how the district is approaching that all-important issue?
Well, you know, it's great to come into a district. It's obvious. I've seen that we've made a great investment in school security, in preparing our schools, you know, construction-wise, entry, exit-wise. Obviously, having our school security officers, our SROs. Our board just approved our next contract for this next year, with our SROs, and really just ensuring that we're very vigilant, that we have procedures, procedures, as parents are coming in, anyone coming into our schools, that we're identifying them and ensuring that we know of everyone that's entering and exiting our schools.
You know, I think of the drills that we did when I was a kid and that my parents would have done, things like duck and cover, fire drills.
Yes.
You know, the threats that were posed to us that we practiced for really didn't happen, thankfully. What our children are dealing with today is something that happens all too often. What kind of approaches does the district take to minimize trauma that our children are facing?
You know, a lot of that is awareness, just ensuring that our students, our teachers are aware of what procedures in case of some type of emergency. You know, we do drills such as shelters in place, you know, lockdown procedures, those type of things, so that in an emergency that, you know, our students and our teachers really know, right, what those procedures are, what do they need to do, where do they need to go, etc. So that practice piece to ensure that if in case that we have an emergency, we're able to react to that.
And how are you best communicating those messages to parents at this point?
Yeah, usually what we do is we have our LCPS app, and so whenever there's a situation in one of our schools, we let our community know. We keep them informed. With any of the details, if it means picking up your child, etc. So we are constantly communicating that information out to our parents through our apps, through our social media, and phone calls if necessary.
So I'd like to move on to a different type of security now, and that's cybersecurity.
Yes.
School districts have become targets, as well as almost every other type of government organization. Obviously incredibly disturbing what kind of damage can be done, and we've seen it,
yes, it is.
Locally. So how have you addressed that in your district? How does the district build up its cybersecurity force?
We have definitely put in a great investment. We've invested greatly into our cybersecurity. My understanding before I arrived, we did have a cybersecurity type of attack, if you will, and so we have incorporated and implemented measures, and I'm feeling strongly that we are in a good place in being able to avoid that again, and we are constantly monitoring that on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, I'll be touring our facility that houses all of those measures and all of the hardware for that piece here next week.
All right, well, I'd like to move on now to transportation. That's something that's been a challenge for Las Cruces Public Schools. Obviously, like so many other things, compounded by the pandemic.
Correct.
But even since then, it's been an ongoing issue. Tell me where the district stands at this point with its transportation issues.
Yes, that definitely has been a challenge in the beginning of the school year. The biggest challenge around that is personnel, just ensuring that we have the right personnel, or the numbers of drivers that are needed with our STS partners. So one of the things that we've done is, they've been involved in recruitment efforts. Right now, I think we've had 4 drivers that just started this week. We have 11 drivers that are in the process of training. And we are also starting a recruitment campaign within our own district, and being able to recruit some of our current people that are working for us now that would like to do an AM or a PM shift driving our buses. Right now we have, I think, 1 or 2 custodians that do that, and so they're able to drive in the morning and then do their custodial work in the afternoon. So we're looking at everything to ensure that we have that personnel piece covered. But we are definitely looking outside of the box. We're looking at what other districts are doing, and just that recruitment, and the retention piece. We definitely are looking at how we can also increase wages and sign-on bonuses as well.
So this is something that we've talked about when it comes to teacher retention. The state of New Mexico made some big investments.
Yes.
How can you compare that to maybe how things were done in Arizona? And would you say that New Mexico has taken the right steps?
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. It's great to see our legislature and our officials, government officials, investing in our people and being able to ensure that as a state that we're able to compete with the states around us, right? Arizona, Utah, as well as Texas, et cetera. And so going into this new legislative session, we're definitely going to continue to advocate for that, to continue to invest in our teachers and our educators, as well as our support staff, because we also have challenges around that and being able to fill our positions around our custodial and some of our operations, side of the house. But it's great that our government officials and our state is investing in our people.
What would you say would be the next thing that you would like to see happen in terms of staff retention?
Definitely continue that investment. I would hope that we would do that. The other piece is to ensure that that we're providing the supports for our teachers, be able to reduce our class sizes, be able to have the budget and the resources necessary to ensure that we're able to reduce those class sizes. And that's one of the biggest things that when you think about teacher stress and teacher challenges is those class sizes. The other piece is also that that's become a challenge is students being able to provide supports for the social emotional learning and social emotional health that post-pandemic has been a challenge for us and our teachers especially. And so investments in those areas.
How would you compare the challenges on that front to before COVID?
Yeah, right now children are just, it's really just adjusting to the post-pandemic piece and some of the things that our children went through, their families, et cetera. and just being able to have somebody to talk to, somebody to be able to, that they can connect with. Our chronic absenteeism has gone up to 31%. Pre-pandemic, I think we were at around 10%.
When you say chronic absenteeism, what does that mean?
So chronic absenteeism is when a student is absent 10 or more days from the beginning of the school year. And so
you mean a third of Las Cruces Public Schools students
yes.
are chronically absent?
Chronically absent, and that was the percentage ending the year last year. This year so far, we are tracking that data. Our schools are doing a great job to ensure that we get our kids back and that we're making home visits, etc. We also have a central team that is providing support and a partnership with NMSU to provide some interns to be able to build upon that team and be able to then support our families and get our kiddos back.
Now, I know that absenteeism was a problem before the pandemic, but if there's one thing I think we all learned during the pandemic was if you're sick, stay home. Does that
Yes.
contribute to the absenteeism rate, or is it something else?
No, it is. It really is something else. It's just engaging our kids, ensuring that they have that connection with our schools. And it seemed like during the pandemic and post-pandemic, they have lost that connection. And we just need to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our kids, whether it's through sports, through fine arts, through career and technical education, etc.
What about counseling and
Yes.
counseling in schools? Is what we do now sufficient?
Not that it's not sufficient, we just need more counselors. Our counselor caseload, especially at the high school, level, it's just really, really large. And so that's one of the things that we are also hoping to advocate at the legislative level, to be able to ensure that we're receiving the resources and increase our counselors and our student to ratio with our counselors. That becomes a challenge. The other piece to this is also ensuring that we're also partnering with our community stakeholders, our community, our social services, et cetera, that can also provide some of those counseling, those behavioral health services outside of the school setting.
Now, recently a study came out that indicated that college entrance exam scores had taken a significant decrease, and this is across the country.
It is.
The experts that have talked about it so far have definitely looked back to COVID and
Yes.
online learning, the disruption of education that happened as a result. Do you feel like we're just now starting to really get a picture of what the effects of COVID were?
Yes, absolutely. Our data, and we're starting to look at that data. Really, last year was it's going to be our baseline coming out of COVID, where our kiddos are, to ensure that we're seeing where they are and where do we need to take them. But this will be the second full year of school that before we went to virtual learning, to really get a feel of where our kids are, where do we need to take them, and what adjustments we need to make. And the data is showing that there's lots of work to be done. Absolutely.
And so a challenge that a state of like New Mexico faces in terms of reading, math proficiency,
Yes.
even graduation rates, it is a complicated issue. What factors do you think are the ones that people really need to be aware of, and that professionals such as yourself really need to be dealing with?
Yeah, the factors is really looking at, and I have to go back to that level one, instruction, and how are we ensuring that we're meeting the needs of all our kids, not only the instructional needs, right, but how do you also incorporate socio-emotional learning within your instruction? That's a big one that we definitely will be building capacity of our teachers to ensure that we're providing those supports throughout the instruction on a daily basis.
How has bilingual education changed since you've been in district leadership, teaching kids who are learning English as a second language?
Yes, even back when I was a student, right, bilingual education was more of a translation, translation curriculum. In today's world of dual language, really the goal is bilingualism by literacy. And so we have incorporated a 50-50 model here in LCPS. And we are definitely looking at to build our teacher capacity. This is our first year that we've transitioned into a 50-50 model, which is 50% English and 50% Spanish of the instruction. And so, really looking at how do we get to that bilingual biliteracy from kinder all the way to the 12th grade, with the goal of the seal of biliteracy that our students could leverage, and then also how they can leverage that beyond graduation with employment, with career, et cetera, and college as well.
And you're no doubt familiar with the Yazzie Martinez case.
Yes.
That really pointed out some deficiencies in New Mexico
Yes.
education. how do you think moving forward the state can overcome those significant challenges?
Well, I think number one is prioritizing those student groups. In LCPS, I'll be presenting some data to our board here at the next board meeting, and really looking at identifying our Yazzie Martinez student groups and ensuring that it's a data-driven process, that we are continuously progress monitoring our kiddos and ensuring that they have the right supports within the classroom on a daily basis. And I keep saying this, it goes back to that level 1 instruction.
In neighboring Texas, the governor called a special session. He very much supports the idea of vouchers, public dollars being used for private education. How do you feel about that movement as it might spread across the country, not necessarily to New Mexico, but things could change?
Well, I'm about parent choice, right? But us as a school district really need to highlight the great things that we're doing in our district to ensure that our parents understand they have great choice in our district. We have great CTE programs, fine arts programs, etc. My concern with vouchers is that many times what I've seen in many systems is that it becomes an inequitable type of system, and it takes away from our underserved communities to ensure that we have the right resources to provide to our kiddos.
Some of the words that we have been using recently become somehow politically toxic in certain situations. Diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI programs under attack in different places around the country. How can the district further pay attention to those issues and help the community understand what they mean? Maybe you can tell us what they mean to you.
Absolutely. When you think about equity, to me, equity is to ensure that every student receives what they need. And I mean every student, right? If you have a student that needs that enrichment piece, that we have that to be able to provide that. The intervention pieces for those kiddos that need that. So ensuring that every student receives what they need, but also paying attention to the data and ensuring that we are not for example, when you think about discipline, over suspending, and that we're able to look at those gaps. And when you talk about the Yazzie Martinez specifically, I could already see in our data, and this is across the state, that there are some gaps there that we need to fill.
Let's talk a little bit about community schools. There are some in the district, and I'd like to hear your opinion on what they offer and how successful they've been for the community.
Absolutely. We just did a report for the board this past board meeting, and we are seeing that we are providing, there has been an impact. We are providing, I think, over 3,000 of our families and students have benefited in some way, shape, or form in that wraparound support that we're providing in our community schools. And I believe truly that is something that is needed, that we are providing, that we are setting up our students for success when we're able to provide supports, the physical, physiological, financial, those type of things, and for our families to be able to navigate the system to ensure that our kiddos can then just focus in on their education. So very supportive of that and looking to be able to expand at some point.
Let's talk a little bit more in detail about what wraparound services means for kids and their parents.
Yeah, so when you think about wraparound, again, I was just talking about our social emotional health, right? So ensure that as our kiddos are needing that, that we provide those supports for them, not only within the school, but with our community providers, our social work providers, social services that are partners in that work, and that they're able to, our families be able to navigate and be able to access those type of services.
Now, is technology part of those services? Technology?
Yes, technology, being able to, that our kiddos have that one-on-one, and then also the instructional pieces, whether it's additional tutoring support, those type of things.
Let's talk a little bit about the technology and the digital divide. That was once again highlighted so brightly during the pandemic. What kind of progress would you say we've made since then on getting kids access?
We made great progress. We just getting ready to continue phase 2 of our interactive boards in our classrooms. So every one of our classrooms, by the end of the month, I think we'll have an interactive board in the classroom. We are a 1-to-1 district, so all of our children have those devices that they can use in the classroom as well as at home. So I can say as a district we've come a long way, and it's great to see that we have invested in the right way to ensure that our kiddos have that opportunity.
If another pandemic broke out, would there be significant changes in how we did things last time to how we'll do things next time?
Yes, absolutely. I think we've learned a lot, from that, and being in the 5th largest school district, as you can imagine, with over 300 schools, we did, a lot of learning around how you continue to provide professional learning for teachers, and also just realizing that with our students, it's the same supports in the classroom, it's just a different platform. And so just realizing that, okay, we're not in the classroom, it's still the same supports, still the same systems, but just in a different platform.
Well, let's talk about another way that kids need to be supported, and that's with nutrition.
Yes.
Tell me how schools address the nutritional needs of children throughout the day, breakfast, lunch, even sometimes meals outside of that.
Outside of that, yeah. So we follow federal guidelines, federal nutrition guidelines that ensure that, in regards to sugar intake and those type of things. So our meals are healthy. And many of our schools, for example, have salad bars for our kids. I was at Doña Ana the other day, and kiddos I think that salad bar didn't last very long, just used to being able to eat those vegetables, et cetera.
They ate the salad.
They loved it. Yes, they loved it. So it was great to see that in many of our schools, our kids are just used to that every day, being able to eat those nutritious meals.
Obviously there was a lot of support from the federal government during COVID, and a lot of that support has gone away, is going away. Yeah. And we saw child poverty cut, I believe, almost in half.
Yes.
As a result of some programs that are no longer there. What do you anticipate the district's role and the school's role will be in supporting those children who find themselves once again in poverty, maybe facing food insecurity?
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge that's coming up here next September, where those federal dollars run out, and we're having a lot of conversations at the state level, our New Mexico Department of Education, and being able to look at it as a state of how are we going to continue those programs that have had an impact with those federal dollars. And as a district, we are going to be evaluating, what had the greatest impact and how we can continue to sustain those programs, to continue to do that for our kiddos and our families. But that is something that definitely is a conversation that is happening at the state level, and especially again with this legislative session coming up, that our state officials are really looking at how we are going to continue to support our schools for those programs that are having a high impact and high yield results for our kids.
Now, as we're having this conversation, there is a challenge ongoing to a book in one of the high school libraries. Yes. Now, we could say that this probably won't be the last time. It's been a very big topic across the country. Let's talk a little bit about what we should expect from our school libraries.
Yeah, our school libraries, we ensure that we have books that are appropriate, age appropriate, and those are based on federal guidelines as well, from our library federal guidelines. And the great thing about that is that there is a process, right? If any community member feels that we need to review certain books, et cetera, we do have a process, and we have a policy as a district, and we involve our stakeholders in making that decision and not the decision, but making a recommendation to the superintendent.
So is it a case of a student checking out a book from the library and a parent taking a look at the book and saying, oh my goodness, the content in this book I don't think is appropriate for my child? Or is it more of a bigger picture issue where there are certain titles that community members are alerted to?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think part of this is community members. Well, we have to be careful is that we are also ensuring that we don't infringe on our students' rights, right for free speech, because that is a part of that. And so there is, federal, guidelines around that. And so the great thing is having that process to ensure that we have a fair process on reviewing our books. But as a parent also has the right to go to any school, any of our schools, and be able to block, if you will, certain titles for their child so they can't check those out. So we do have procedures in place for parents to be able to then decide what their kids see or don't see or read.
All right. Las Cruces Public School Superintendent Ignacio Ruíz, that's our time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It was great to be here.
And if recess was your favorite subject in school, you might remember swinging on monkey bars and maybe balancing along the tops of them. KRWG Public Media's Johnny Coker, along with senior TV producer Evelyn Sandoval, learned about one Las Crucean who's helping students relive those days and go far beyond them through the practice of parkour.
Unfortunately, you're in a parkour class, so that is not allowed.
Adrian Ruíz is the branch manager and senior coach at Parkour Generations Las Cruces.
So I started quite a long time ago. I think I've been training probably about 20 plus, either as a rowdy youth or as a professional in a professional field. Our grassroots classes were basically a consequence of nobody really knowing what parkour was at that time. It was more challenging for us to attempt to describe it, which I'm much better at now. Parkour is a practice based on running, jumping, and climbing. Most people then would look at it as sort of a reckless sport, and they couldn't really see everything behind it. So to help combat that, we started some free classes for a bit. We're going to start pretty basic today, and then I'm going to go straight into a Yamak-style challenge, okay?
So what was the evolution from going from New Mexico parkour to Parkour Generations, and what was the timeline there as well?
It was a few years for us to do that. First, I needed to be able to demonstrate that people wanted to learn the practice, and then also demonstrate that people were getting better as a consequence of the practice. I eventually bought the rights to PK Gen Las Cruces, which offered us a lot more than what we had initially.
Tell me about the pandemic and how that affected your practice.
Once it hit and the spike got very high, everyone retreated into their homes, and for a little bit we were really worried about staying afloat as a business. So PK Gen Boston decided to start doing an online training course in exchange for donations, or if anybody wanted to continue to keep their memberships alive. But thanks to people still supporting it, that's for the most part how we got through.
Similar to many other businesses, Ruíz said that the pandemic forced him to completely shut the doors on the business for months. Ruíz said that parkour has molded him both physically and mentally, and that his practice has taught him the art of risk management. To him, keeping Parkour Generations Las Cruces afloat was a risk that, in his mind, was worth taking.
This. Oh, almost got that one.
From afar, it may seem easy to balance, jump, and swing from bar to bar. I can tell you it's not.
3, 2, 1. Dude, hero. You got parkour blood in you? Okay. Oh, dude, so close. I'm really looking forward to see what this next generation brings to the table, or what everybody has been working on, while they're away from the rest of the world.
That's our time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition from 5 a.m. to 9. Fresh Air at 11, followed by Here and Now from noon to 2. And All Things Considered 4 to 7 p.m. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd like to hear from you. Email us with story ideas and video submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Casey Counts. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.